Ace Atkins is a writer of books. He's written a lot of them. 19, you just said, I believe. This is the fifth book in the series about Quinn Colson. Set around these parts in Timahaw County in Mississippi. If you drive down there and are trying to find the booby trap, which I did last month, it's gone, which was really, really a giant letdown. In its place, though, is a brand new place called Vienna's, or is it Vienna's, as in
like
sausages?
sausages? No, that's actually a better idea. I kind of like that. I think I'm going to go with that.
It kind of reflects the men going in there, perhaps.
And I could possibly see that in neon. I could.
It's good to see you, and you're back home. Thank goodness after your travels. Where have you been?
I've been everywhere. I've been gone for 2 weeks straight. Started off last Tuesday in Memphis. And I have been traveling ever since. I've been out on the West Coast. I've been to Sacramento. I've been to Napa Valley. I've been to the Carolinas. I have been
at bookstores.
At bookstores and in Wichita. But I actually took the solar-powered plane, so it took quite a long time. That's how I got around.
It goes 28 miles an hour.
It does, and it was a slow trip this morning from.
So folks
downtown.
on the West Coast and such are hip to Quinn Colson and Ace Atkins, or has this spread like wildfire? Or the plague?
I'm saying it's a little bit like the plague.
Yeah.
But it's funny, I go out there and I try to explain to people the Mid-South and Memphis and the Deep South and Mississippi. And there's always a part in the conversation when I'm talking to people that are in California where you start feeling like you're down on your own people and your relatives, and you don't mind talking about them, but you don't want people in California to go, yeah, those people in the South are crazy. I can't stand those Southerners. Then you kind of start taking pride in the South and you start going the other way. And that's the way it works.
All you grain-eating, clowns out here busting our balls, really?
Yeah.
Well, but this book and these books, this is the fifth one in the ongoing series, do show a side of the South that, having been born here and raised here, and now living here, is pretty accurate when you get down to street level and get in amongst them. I mean, this is kind of the real deal.
I always tell people when I talk about Southern writers, I said I think that with books or with films, we either have like Steel Magnolias or we have Mississippi Burning. And, we really exist somewhere in the middle, where there's this glorious view of the South and Moonlight Magnolias, or else it's, it's the KKK. It's like we're somewhere in the middle. And I think that place somewhere in the middle tends to be kind of crazier and stranger. You can just pick up the commercial appeal and find these amazing stories, this incredible stuff that happens. It's great fodder for my books.
And as often you have taken a news story or two as the foundations and some of the plots in this book. And I guess you've had to answer some questions about that in the media, and I have seen this a few times. This young lady in the book, she is killed. They poured gas down her throat, and she's just all lit up, and she burns to death. Not unlike a case around here 2 years ago,
Sure.
which is in the news still.
Yeah.
And so folks ask you, about these inspirations, and then the coach in this book, which caught me way off guard, is a throwback to a news story of the past couple of years as well. So you take these ideas,
and not necessarily the one that people think of. People think about the Penn State scandal.
Yeah.
And we can't talk too much about that, because it would, tell you what happens in the book. But there was a pretty horrific coach incident here, if you want to call it an incident, or a horrific crime that happened in Smithville, Mississippi. And so that was a huge part of that.
So it's in relation to what happened at Penn State?
No. It's in relation to this case that happened in Smithville, Mississippi, with this guy named Dwight Bowling.
But the inspiration, though, is from that incident, without giving away anything?
Yeah, absolutely.
So did somebody call you out about this Miss Chambers thing and say, did you take this idea and how dare you?
Well, I think people don't understand how fiction works, which is, I think if you're able to take away all the stories that are inspired by something true, I mean, you're going to have to remove most of the books, on the shelf.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't understand the difference between inspired by, or this gave me an idea to write about, and this is a book about. This is not a book about that. And if you come to the book wanting to, see the Jessica Chambers case, you're not going to get it, because that story hasn't really been told. We really don't even know what happened. And until the court case goes through, I think there is a good book about that, and somebody will write one, and they probably will write several. and we'll see that down the road.
But the seed, though, was planted, and that gets into your head, and so as you form the idea for this book, you have these seeds here and there that you kind of grow from yourself.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've written about a lot of things that happen in the Mid-South, and there's always these news ideas that give me kind of a kickoff point. What if this happened in my fictional Tibahaw County? What if this happened, to the characters that I write about, like Quinn Colson and to Lily Virgil, and how would this affect this town? And, I wrote about the tornado that touched down in Smithville
Right.
3-4 years ago. I wrote about a child trafficking case that happened in New Albany.
Yeah.
And so it's just, you see these crimes, you see the headlines, and you say, if I take this to my fictional county, how would this affect the town, and how would it change things? And, I think it's the same thing, it's not breaking any new ground. It's what writers have done forever. I think John Grisham did that with Time to Kill. He saw a court case that was very much like the Time to Kill case, and gave him inspiration to write that book. And that's where you get it. And that's what I think makes these books accurate and specific. As we talked about, Tibahaw County is a
Yes.
fictional county, but maybe it's not. It's pretty dead on for this area.
I think it's pretty close. Our guest is Ace Atkins. The new book is called The Innocents, innocent plural, not in a sense. Kind of a confusing title. Thanks for that.
Yeah,
But I guess there was a point to be made here. So
I think so.
there was more than one innocent in this book.
Yeah.
So Johnny Stagg is in jail, and Quinn's daddy, Jason, and he are cooking up something which is yet to be resolved.
Right.
But Quinn has rejoined the sheriff's office down there as an aide, so he's back in the game.
Right.
And we have a new place, Vienna's, of course, with...
We're just going to go with that. I could just
I
keep
think
on
you
that
should.
track. Yeah.
And there could be a place next door to it called Potted Meat, and do that like for the guys in the cricket. Just a thought.
This is kind of like that idea that happened years ago about the steak place in Oxford that never.
Yeah. Well,
Are we ever going to? Can we can't mention that place because it's
Zeke
copyrighted.
is gone, so we really can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But it was a good idea, and I was told back at the time that the idea for Steak and Titties, that the Oxford City Council was so upset they had a meeting
Yeah.
to make sure that that never happened. It was a joke. Speaking of fiction,
Could we? It's so funny how people don't get. When you talk about
They just
things,
don't
just take
under-
things
we're just
very.
kidding.
Yeah, yeah. But you could sell T-shirts.
we did.
Yeah.
We did.
I need one of those.
I think they're long gone. Check the eBay.
I will.
It might be on there.
They're huge in Japan right now.
I bet they are. Fanny Bell with an E, Hathcock, is the new lady in charge of the Gentlemen's Club, and she is a very interesting character. Any inspiration from that came for her or from her? Or
Sure.
about
No,
her?
I mean, there was a couple different characters. I actually took a woman named Fanny Bell, who was my book, Wicked City, who was a madam in Phoenix City,
Oh.
Alabama, back in the 1950s, and she was a real character, and I loved writing about her. And then there was a woman named Louise Hathcock, who's very famous in the Buford Pusser story. If you guys are, of course, everyone
My
knows.
wife is a pusser,
Yeah,
by the way.
is that right?
Yes.
Does she have a stick that she
She
beats you
has,
with?
it is in her blood.
Yeah.
And yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy that, or is that?
That's a whole different
Okay,
show.
I'm sorry. We'll go
Sorry.
get back on track with this.
Sorry.
But anyway, there's a woman named Louise Hathcock who was a nemesis of Buford Pusser, and so I took those two women and combined them. So I plagiarized a little bit for myself. by
She's a
taking the-
badass.
Yeah, she's a tough woman. She is, and I was really inspired too. There's a woman played named Vienna. It's in a film called Johnny Guitar, which a lot of people have not seen, with Joan Crawford, and she is a tough broad that runs this old West saloon and this old Western. And so I went back and I watched that movie, and so there's a lot of kind of Joan Crawford tough stuff happening. So
That name does sound very Gunsmoke.
yeah,
You
and
know,
that's
like-
what. I mean, that's what these books are,
Yeah.
essentially. They're, when you really boil
Modern
them
day
down,
cowboy books.
they're
Kinda-
modern day.
kinda.
They are, and for anyone who's traveled around North Mississippi, there is a frontier aspect to many of these towns, and I mean that in the
Yes.
kindest way. And I mean, that's the
Yes.
fun part, is you go into the town, instead of, you have your general store and you've got your, saloon or whatever, but really
The
what
post
you,
office, maybe.
yeah, but really what you have is you've got the general store is the dollar store, and the saloon probably is the Sonic, and they're all pretty much typical kind of places.
All on the same street.
Yeah.
Well, but this book though, and this writing is not there. It's not overdone, and it's not a great exaggeration. I mean, this is all believable stuff as it comes to biker gangs and the young black kids in this book. and the young man who gets beaten up because he is thought to be some kind of a Muslim,
Yeah.
and this perception that folks in this part of the world have about some of these people. It is upsetting, but it's true.
Well, you also go into most small towns in North Mississippi or in parts of Memphis and West Tennessee, and many of the people that are running the convenience stores are immigrants.
Pakistani, Indian people,
Yes,
Middle Eastern,
and people
yeah.
will confuse, this person is a Muslim or this one is not or whatever, and then they'll it's just, I've seen that happen in Oxford.
Yeah.
And there's several stores that are run by immigrants that are Muslim, and people are very hesitant about them. They don't know who they are, and and it's got to be very tough for them. But I did want this series to be true and authentic, and I wanted Quinn Coulson, who's he's the hero of these 6 books. I wanted him to be a real guy. I didn't want him to be Jason Bourne. I didn't want him to be a super soldier. I didn't want him to be a Delta Force guy or something like that. He's just a former enlisted guy, Sergeant, U.S. Army Ranger. He's returned home from the war, and what he's finding back in North Mississippi is not unlike what he saw in Afghanistan.
Right.
Busted and broken roads. He's finding drug dealing. He's finding corruption. And this is the stuff that he's supposed to help fix in Afghanistan. Comes home after 10 years, he says, this is the same crap that I dealt with over there. What can I do to fix it over here? So he's one of the good guys. And Lily Virgil, who works with him in the sheriff's office,
Yeah.
they want to make
Great
change.
character,
And
yes.
that's what I hope this series is about.
So she enlists him to help her, and he's back home now from training police officers in Afghanistan. So would you ever take Quinn to the Middle East and write from that perspective?
I've been asked that on this tour, and people ask me, now that you're actually getting into 5, 6 books, I think that's when you finally have a real series. When you write a series of 3 to 4 books, I don't think that necessarily is something to get going. But now I'm actually on 6 books, this stuff is happening. But that much said, I think really the core of these books is about Tibahaw County,
Yeah.
and it's about North Mississippi, and it's about Memphis. I could do a book without Quinn, but I could not do a book without the county and the people of that county.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think taking Quinn outside that world would work. I think it would just be completely different.
In this book, though, it seems to me that he is not the star. The county and the state and the people are the star.
Sure.
And he takes not a back seat, but he isn't the dominant character this time.
No, I think
Lily is kind of, and the entire atmosphere and the place
Yeah.
are the star.
And I kind of wanted to do a book. I think readers really gravitate towards Lily, and they really like her outspoken manner. And for those listeners who've not read,
Outspoken.
we're
Yeah.
very outspoken, very direct.
Nice mouth.
Yeah, and she calls it the way that it is. I like Lily a great deal, and I think I get tired also of reading books that are crime books or hero-driven books where the woman in the book is the damsel in distress. She's the
Yeah.
sex object. She is the person to rescue, that kind of stuff. Lily Virgil doesn't need anyone to rescue
Exact
her.
opposite
She's
of
really
that.
the toughest, and she represents, when I used to be a crime reporter down in Florida, all the women that I knew in law enforcement. And I knew some tough as nails women that worked in that business, that were detectives. They worked on the streets. They were always 10 times smarter than the men. And one of them, a woman named Jane Castor, ended up becoming the chief of police in Tampa. And so they were always direct. They just came, called it the way that it was. And so that's really where Lily Virgil comes from.
And the assumption that because she is she's a tough cop. They make assumptions about what she is in real life as far as her sexuality.
Oh, sure,
Which
of course.
which might be stupid, might be not, but it's an unspoken thing. She has a daughter, Rose, who is 4 now in this book. But the immediate go-to is that she's some lesbian who a gun and a bad mouth.
Yeah,
But it's all left. It's all kind of left open for discussion and your own thought.
Well, I think, and this is that continuing kind of soap opera story that goes from books to books and gets broader and broader. And the thing with Lily is that she really is the most capable law enforcement officer in that county. She's really the people around there are lucky to have her. But the chance of her ever getting voted in, I mean, there's never been a woman elected sheriff in the state of Mississippi.
Yeah.
And the chance of ever anyone that direct and that outspoken and that unsavvy politically, is her chances of actually ever getting that position is minimal. And as we see at the end of the book, we can't talk about what happens,
No.
but she essentially shoots herself in the foot again, even though she's the best at her job. But it is this
She's not
continuing
shy.
story. So
Yes, and as I said before, there are many different roads to go down. Wes has read it and loved it. Any
I thought it was great.
observations?
I wonder, when you sat down to start this series and designed your county, did you have the county fully mapped out? Because we in this book see Blackjack, that community there, I think, for the
Yeah.
first time.
Yeah. The first thing I did is I started thinking about what I wanted to do, and it was kind of a combination of my two passions. One is classic crime fiction, and Chandler and Hammett and Ross McDonald, and I love Elmore Leonard and Parker and all that stuff, but then also William Faulkner. And the idea of having my own county that I could write about, and I could, basically own that county, and I could be the mayor of that county, and I could write about the people and the history and see it grow and change was very. So one night I sat down and drank a half bottle of bourbon to give a little inspiration, medicinally, of course, and I mapped out the county, and I wrote out the places where they were. I wrote out where the river was, and I think geographically, you would find it somewhere in and around Tupelo. That's kind of what I've kind of left it. It's not too far from Tupelo, but we're about 90 miles outside Memphis, and but yeah, I've mapped it out. I've got the cities on there, and when you see the book, you open it up, you can actually see that map, and you can see where everything is placed. And it grows and it gets more detailed, Wes. Let me answer your question. Yeah, with each book, sometimes I surprise myself. I said, well, I didn't know that road was there. I didn't know that little hamlet was there. That's interesting.
But it's my county, and I'll put it there.
Yeah, but damn right, I can do it.
So you just you just kind of think as you write and go. Do you drink bourbon when you write?
Yes, that's what Faulkner always said. Or was it Hemingway said, write drunk and edit sober.
Well, Faulkner pulled it off pretty well, and Mr. Hemingway did too.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes. Well, it is a fine piece of work. These books get better every time. The first one I thought was very reserved and dark in a different way. But as each book kind of unfolds and the story expands, it gets more liberal and more fun and more crazy and more colorful, let's say. And that seems to be by design or just because you're more comfortable with the characters.
I think after 6 books, I know these characters very well, and I know how they think, and I know what they'll do, and I don't have to work as much as lining everything up and explaining who these people are, and I can have a lot of fun with it. And I love people, and after traveling all around the country and finally coming home, I love to hear Southerners talk. I love to eavesdrop on them, and I love the language around here, and I love it's crazy. I mean, we've got a lot of crazy people here. I know it's shocking to you, but
I had no idea.
There are a lot of nutty people around here, and I love to hear them talk. I love the thoughts and ideas and whatever, and so I constantly am drawing inspiration. And it's funny, like I was just driving down the road today, and thinking about it. I said, you know what? I really need to write a scene at the Sammy Hagar Rum Bar. Because, that's what Memphis, I hope they're not a sponsor, but that's what we need in Memphis.
Sammy Hagar's Red Rocker Bar and Grill.
What I really thought, what Memphis needs, that's what we need. And so, it's at the dog track. And if I can't write a scene there, but that's weird Memphis.
Sammy is there every day, which would add to the fun.
Yeah, he might actually be. He might be.
Who knows? But that would be a good place to have that. And in this book, you reference a few places in town, the arcade, I believe, and a few more things. So
I used to always like to do scenes at the Denny's on Union.
By the train station,
by the Peabody, and it's not
bus
there.
Station. Yeah,
it's not there anymore.
Right.
And it was always to me like the most depressing place I could ever think to sit down and have steak and eggs. I was like, I'd pass it late at night. You'd see people there. They're just like, how did my life end up that I'm sitting at the Denny's on Union? And it was just.
If you're there, it's been a long night, probably at the dog track.
Absolutely. So I was sad when they closed, but and local wrestling, and this is a crazy town. It's a wonderful town to write about.
And you also there's a place over by Graceland, a wing joint that you bring up briefly. Is that place even there?
I think there's a lot of places like that.
I think they're
on
every corner.
In Memphis, is there a combination car wash wing joint? Yes.
Oh, sure there is. Sure there is.
And
car detailing and get your wings at the same time.
And yes, and the hottest wings on the menu are called Bitches in Heat.
Yeah.
And I think you should get some of those today, like right now, perhaps.
I think,
if you can find a place. It's a great book. Thank you for coming to see us, as always.
Thank you, sir. It's always fun.
And good to have you back home. I know it's been a long couple of weeks, so go home and rest and come see us again. What's up? It's almost 2017. How's Spencer?
Spencer's great. I'm in actually the middle of the new Spencer book right now. So there's no rest for me. I'll go home, and probably this afternoon I'll start writing some new pages for Spencer, and have the laptop on the road with me, and it won't be long before the sixth Spencer novel will be finished, and it'll be out in May. So there's never any rest for me.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
AceAtkins.com, I guess, is the website.
That's it.
Do you have those caps on there for sale?
No, do you think I should?
Dude.
Yeah.
Could we sell the Steak and Titty shirts along with the Tibahaw County hats?
I don't know if we can make those anymore because we can't say steak on the air.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah. So I'm not sure how that would work. But we
How
can
about the
look into
Vienna
it.
sausages?
I think that and potted meat,
Okay.
along with those caps, should be on your website for sale.
All right, all right.
Ace Atkins.
10%.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment.